previous administrations,
Right.
based on mostly requests from the Air Force. But given how, I mean, anybody of our generation knows how impactful, important, and significant the A-10 and the Warthog has been. And that's what you want when you need close air support. Full stop, everybody knows it. To include when you've got down pilots and you need to go downtown Iran. And it was incredibly effective in those missions. Now, there are other places where it's less survivable, and I understand that. But there's still most of the world where it is the most effective close air support platform. That's why I got with the Air Force Secretary. We extended it to 2030, and we're, per the President's guidance, going to look at other options, maybe other variants and ways at which we can keep the A-10 capability or platform on the battlefield for our warfighters who want that kind of close air support.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Just, you know, as technology advances, sometimes we forget, sometimes the old school machinery we have works just as well. I know you just, you know, got the Apache helicopters. I mean, that's a 50-year-old frame. If you look at the AK-47s, my God, it's one of the most effective rifles, and from 1947. So I don't want to lose sight of that. You know, I think too much is spent on so many defense companies coming in here selling us the newest, greatest product, but warfare ultimately is about killing the enemy, and we know that Warthog does that. I want to shift focus a little bit to actually kind of old school as well. I know the SOF and Psy Op right now, there's been 3,000 positions cut, mostly on Psy Ops and Civil Affairs. How is, you know, I've been wondering, we have air superiority in Iran, and it seems like there's no internet connectivity in Iran. Are we doing any leaflet drops over there?
We've explored a variety of different actions, many of which are classified, but that could restore additional communications capability to the Iranian people.
I would love for President Trump's Truth Social post to be leafleted all over Iran, to be honest with you. I think that would encourage them to actually take to the streets. Moving to Iraq, I think there's budgeted right now about $118 million to the government of Iraq for the counter-ISIS mission. We know the problems that the Iraq government are facing right now. And you have personally said that you're going to certify, you know, the spending on it. I mean, do you think that this is an effective use of our money to give it to this government that we know is aligned with Iran and seems like it's becoming more difficult to deal with?
It's a very much an open question. We're paying very close attention to the new government there and the counterterrorism efforts, some of which have been successful over time and others of which have not in this conflict, where Iraq has not stepped up in those efforts. And we're reviewing funding, basing every aspect accordingly, just like we did in Syria. The president directed that we leave Syria. We had 8 bases. We went down to 4, 2, and then 1, and now ultimately are in northern Iraq. And we'll review our posture throughout the region.
Great. With that, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Chair now recognizes a gentleman from New Jersey, Dr. Conaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you and Ranking Member Smith for holding this hearing today. Thanks to the witnesses for presenting themselves to us to answer questions. At the outset, let me say that I'm proud of the work that our service members do every day to keep our nation safe, and I have profound respect for those who voluntarily put on the uniform to serve and protect our country. The Trump administration's reckless military actions are driving up costs for everyday Americans. This war, as you know, is not supported by a significant majority of the people in this country. The administration has increased military operations around the globe, including strikes in 8 countries, and the war in Iran is costing taxpayers billions of dollars. Estimates are by the time it's over, it could cost $1 trillion to the American people, a lot of that off budget. It's estimated that the first 6 days of the war cost around $12 billion alone, and we are now hitting 60 days of war fighting without a plan to exit this conflict. The administration has failed to transparently tell the Congress or the American people what the costs of the war are and why we are at war, and expects Americans to keep footing the bill. The comptroller has, and thank you for coming, sir, given us an incomplete number, and I understand we're in the midst of war and there's you do have some challenges in that regard. But Congress, I think, my colleagues would have appreciated a more thoroughgoing cost estimate so that we may properly conduct oversight as is our duty. I would agree with my colleague, Ms. Goodlander, about the Department sharing the full breakdown of the cost of this war and understanding where every dollar is going. That number does not likely reflect the full costs of war, as you know. There are many estimates out there that say that this war will cost much more than you and the administration are putting before the American people. If you look at our past conflicts, when we went to war in World War I, and this has been mentioned, Wilson went to Congress and called for the American people to help pay for the war. Franklin Roosevelt went to Congress, asked for a declaration of war, and the Americans pitched in to pay for this war. Conflicts after that, sadly, too many of them are off budget and are leaving Americans with trillions of dollars in debt. Average Americans are suffering the consequences of this war in Iran, including increased fuel prices in my home state of New Jersey, where gas is now on average $4.20 a gallon. Diesel is almost $6 per gallon. In addition to increased fuel prices, everything costs more: groceries, housing costs. And the people have to pay for it, have not asked for this war, and I think are a little bit bewildered as to why we're in this war. I'm not disputing the fact that the Iranian regime is a malignant, dangerous regime that has killed its own people and indeed has killed Americans over the decades. I think where we disagree is what's the best way to get at Iran. Do we negotiate with them and control their access to nuclear weapons in a multilateral way that included even Russia in the deal and the agreement that President Obama brought forward, or do we go and try to and engage in a costly war in order to get at those nuclear weapons? I think that's where the principal conflict lies. How do we achieve the same goals, costly war or through negotiation? And we've seen that apparently there wasn't a plan to deal with the action that Iran had to take, that is to close the Strait of Hormuz, because it's the only thing you can do when you are the weaker country in an asymmetric conflict. Of course they were going to do that, and I wonder whether or not the President was apprised of this before he took the actions that he has taken. So let me just ask this question. And before this, make this comment too. This war is just 60 days so far. And this thought that Americans wish to bear the consequences of increased fuel prices, I don't think is borne out by the fact that, those costs impact people on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis. Mortgages come and have to be paid. Groceries have to be bought on a weekly basis. And those gas prices are squeezing the American public. So can you tell us whether or not there was planning to deal with in advance, to deal with the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, given the likely impact on world fuel prices?
That will have to be for the record, because the gentleman's time has expired. Chair now recognizes the ranking member for any closing comments he may have.
Well, first of all, I want to thank the chairman for conducting this hearing. Obviously, there's a lot of passion on both sides, a lot of partisan stuff being thrown around. I think on this committee, we're all trying to serve the men and women who serve us as well as we possibly can. You handled it very well in a difficult time. I appreciate the fairness of that. And yes, we have a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, the Iran war is the biggest issue that we face. And I hope that you gentlemen, would take seriously the concerns we have about where it's going and how it's going to end. Yes, it has not yet lasted as long as Vietnam or World War II, but we're also told it was going to last 4 to 5 weeks when it started. We were given an idea of what the mission has been. It's clearly gone beyond that. We did not contemplate that we would have, the Strait of Hormuz shut down, or that we would have to implement a blockade. So how we get to the result is something we really are going to want to hear from all of you about on a regular basis, and what role the service members who are over there, some 50,000, are going to play in that. And we all agree, Mr. Secretary, that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. Is this really getting us there? That's the connection we want to see. I mean, you can say, well, we had to start a war to stop the nuclear weapon. That in and of itself doesn't make it true. How is the war and the military action actually stopping that nuclear weapon? How does it put us into a better position? I think that's what we really need to hear, and what we'll have to continue to work on long after this hearing. But I thank our witnesses for coming before us. It is the democratic process. We're all part of a representative democracy. I have never met too many people at the Pentagon who loved coming over and talking to Congress. I get that, but I hope you understand how important and how necessary it is that the people's voices are heard. and we do have an opportunity to question and challenge the decisions that are made by our executive branches. We have a right to do under the Constitution, actually an obligation to do under the Constitution. So look forward to continuing the conversation. I thank the chairman again, and I yield back.
I thank the ranking member, and I thank the witnesses. Thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for 6 hours of tough duty, and you've done a great job. I want to end this hearing the way I started it. This is a historic budget request by this administration. We are in unacceptably low levels of spending historically, and this president is meeting the moment with a budget request that meets the requirements that we have to meet if we want to remain at peace. This is about peace through strength. This budget will help us have peace through strength, and I urge my colleagues who are not in this chamber to pay attention to what we talked about today. This department, I think, is done an admirable job of defending the budget. And with that, thank you for being here. This hearing is adjourned.